Right, good morning everybody and welcome. This is the very first session of Elite Masterminds. This is where I bring together our top performing agents within eXp and we discuss the strategies that makes them a top performing agent. And what you might be asking yourself is, well, what classifies you to be a top performing agent? Well, within eXp, we have two categories that really highlights a top performing agent. The first is a cap agent. This is an agent that has achieved that 150,000 Rand cap, and they're now starting to earn that 100% commission less that 4% transactional fee. So that's the level one, what we refer to as a cap agent. The next level is our icon agents. These are agents that have really excelled to the highest level. And in essence, they have earned back that 150,000 Rand cap. They've earned that back in incentive shares, which in essence, if you really start looking at their business, takes it to a whole new level. Now, joining me today, I've got Ida and I've got Delisha, two of our cap agents that are going to be going through a topic that I thought would be absolutely relevant to start, which is the best lead generation techniques and skills and strategies that they are using going into 2025. So I want to start with Delisha. Delisha, how are you doing? You can unmute yourself. How are you doing today? And just give me a little bit of a background. When did you start in real estate? When did you come into eXp? And some highlights just to introduce yourself. Seems like Delisha's got issues with her microphone. All right, I'm going to jump on to Ida. Ida, same question goes through to you. Give us an idea of where you've come from, how long in the real estate, and some highlights.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Stuart, for the opportunity, and good morning and welcome to everybody on the call. It's so exciting to have you here with our mastermind. Stuart, I've been in real estate now for 5 years, just coming out of COVID. My mentor that brought me into the industry, I was actually doing marketing for, so a very relevant topic for me today. This is actually how I got into real estate, and she asked me, have I ever thought about coming into the industry? I said, absolutely not, but I'm willing to give it a go. And 5 years going into not looking back, it's probably one of the most rewarding careers that somebody can have out there. Some of my highlights include starting my own team, the Cape Town Real Estate Group, powered by eXp, running here in Cape Town and surrounds. We are 7 members strong right now, and they are absolutely flying and just embracing the training and mentorship. Definitely another highlight in my career, I've been with Build Africa Conference now as a speaker, sharing my own personal story and success stories and what has helped us along the way. I've been on some tech panels with mega agent leadership camps. So yeah, tech is my thing, and combining my love and passion for real estate and technology, it's an absolute win-win combination.
Absolutely. And you know, one thing that you spoke about is having this win-win type of mentality. This is what we have.
Correct.
And that is so crucial for us as we're starting to go forward in our business. And I always like to extend that, because we always talk about a win-win situation being win-win between buyers and sellers, but it's actually a three-way. It's win-win between, and an additional win, buyers, sellers, as well as the agents. But you don't get to that by literally just going out into the market and waiting for your clients to make contact with you. So, Ada, what are the key strategies, the lead generating strategies? But for me, I like to turn the word around. What strategies are you using to generate leads for your business?
Yeah. So, Stuart, I fully believe, and I'm a big fan of having a process, having a standard operating procedure, knowing what you have to do. So, you know, when we speak about atomic habits, one of the best quotes out of the book for me is, you don't rise to the level of your goals, but rather you fall to the level of your system. So first of all, before heading into the lead generation, I do believe that you need not only a strategy, but the most important thing about that strategy is making sure that you have actually put it in your diary, because a strategy without actually blocking time out for it is worth the paper it's written on. So making sure you've got a strategy and having that into your diary and sticking it is probably one of the biggest struggles that us as agents have, is actually sticking to that time block. The strategies that are currently working for me and my team now personally, Stuart, is number one, knowing the market really, really well before you even start having conversations, knowing what's going on. I mean, there's micro markets, so to speak. So if I look at Cape Town, we're looking at Atlantic Seaboard, Western Seaboard, you're looking at Deep South, you're looking at Northern Suburbs. So knowing the intricacies of what type of stock is moving in each of those farming areas is crucially important when you have that conversation. So don't practice on your clients, practice with your colleagues and do your script practice and know your numbers. So when you have those conversations, you're in a position where you can actually assist your clients by giving them the correct and accurate information. So number one, knowing your market very well. Number two, it's a combination of a couple of things, but in essence, to sum it up, what we are doing that is working very, very, very well for us at the moment is WhatsApp lead generation by means of PropCon. So we draw the 60 credits from virtual agent that eXp gives us, and we send those messages out every day. We have NLP or neuro-linguistic programming scripts that we send out, and we've got 5 typical responses that we have. So that would be the first step in this lead generation. But secondly, and most importantly, is doing the follow-up and actually keeping record of those conversations. So tracking your conversion rates to know, and you'll see very much from market to market, it will differ. I would send out 100 messages in Woodstock and 90 would reply. I would do the same in Sea Point and 20 will reply. So that's how vastly different the markets are, obviously. But knowing what that conversion rate is and making sure that you've diarized that contact to do a follow-up with them, because 70% of the money that's going to be in your bank account is going to line that follow-up. And that's most often when we then get the listing. And with the amazing tools and tech that eXp gives us on Canva with a seller's presentation, it's almost a done deal when they invite you for an appointment.
You know, I absolutely love it when you talk about strategies and systems and having a process in place. You're talking my language. I'm one of those people that without any form of strategy and system in place, in essence, you wake up every morning going, what am I going to do today? So
100%.
having that strategy in place, but you actually added another element to it, which is time block. And I want to just ask you a question on the time block, because so too often agents say to me, hey, Stuart, I just don't have the time to do this. But, you know, lead generation is in fact your business. It's what you should be doing every single day. Give us an idea of when do you time block to do these activities and how long do you time block for?
100%. So I'll take you through a typical day, and it is to such an extent that my hubby even knows if we're going to have date night, it's going to go in the Google Calendar if it's going to happen. And that's how strict I am with that, Stuart. And my team knows that as well. Don't ask me to come on an appointment last minute. If you didn't send me a calendar invite 2 days ago and I didn't have a slot for it, it's simply not going to happen. And I really, really live by my calendar. I've got it on my phone, so those notifications go off with every single time block. To walk you through a typical day of what I would do, I like a slow morning. You're right. Our days are quite hectic and they go on for quite long in the night sometimes, and late afternoon. So I like a slow morning. I wake up at any time between 6 to 7. I start getting my boys ready for school, take them to school at 8 o'clock. Then I listen to a podcast or two from 8 o'clock after school, have a cup of coffee. And then at 9 o'clock, it's full steam ahead. I do my planning the day before. So at 9 o'clock, I start to lead generation. I've loaded my numbers the day before. I would probably send out anything between 60 to 100 WhatsApp messages per day. And I only do that from Monday to Thursday, depending on the response rate from the area. You kind of gauge what response rate you get. So I kind of also gauge it so as to not send too many, because the whole point of the WhatsApp message is to engage in conversation. So there's no point in sending out that message if you're not going to respond to it immediately. So I'd probably be sending out messages and responding to them anytime from 9 o'clock up and until 12. So that's a proper 3-hour lead generation session of having conversations and sending out CMAs with the latest rental stats and the sales stats for the area or for the sectional scheme. For 12 to 1, I go pick up my boys at school, so I still make sure I've got time for them. And then as from after school, I have appointments. So every single day, whether or not that's listing appointments, viewing appointments, and those appointments, I easily, depending on the day, have them from say 2 o'clock until maybe 5 or 6. What I do try to do though, Stuart, is because look, it is quite, real estate is quite admin heavy, and making sure that you've all got your FICA correct and all those types of things. So what I try to do is I try to bundle up my appointments on some days. So I would say, listen, I want to do appointments Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Mondays are too hectic maybe for appointments. So I bundle those appointments up for Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And then when I get home, I cook, I do all what I, get the boys ready for bed and all those types of things. So that's what a typical day would look like for me. On days that I do a follow-up, let's say, for example, I would do lead gen on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. On a Thursday, I would maybe say, I'm going to focus now on my follow-ups. Now, all those conversations and everything that I've had since I've started lead generation, I've got Sisu. So it's a tracking software. And what it enables you to do is not only to set a goal, but to actually then track those conversion rates as to how close I am to my goal. Am I behind? Am I ahead? So I can gauge if I'm going to reach my goal or not. So having a tracking tool is vital in, furthering the day's activities that stems from your time block then. But as I said, having the plan, getting into the diary is nothing. Anybody can do that, but actually sticking to that and it's difficult at the start because people don't always understand it. But the moment that they realize, oh, Eide operates like that, I'm not going to get past it, people actually start to fit in with that. And that's how you need to protect your time block if it's the most important part of the day.
No, absolutely. Not protecting that time block actually leads to distractions. And one thing that I've actually pulled out of this, which is so important, is being consistent throughout this particular journey. This is not just, let's do it once and let's hope that we get results. This is doing it consistently all the time, as well as being persistent to say, I will do this from 9 until 12. And it actually becomes a habit for you where people know that you go through. Now, I want to dive into, you actually said something that's very key, which is knowing the market, knowing those numbers, and actually getting all of that information, because it becomes more relevant when you're doing your lead generation. Where do you get that information from to get all that information to work with?
So Stuart, one key thing that I do, I sometimes compare property practitioners to doctors, general practitioners. We need to keep our finger at the pulse at all times. And so I make time during the day. I've got certain sectional schemes in areas that I farm in that I focus on. So once every 2 weeks, I'll draw a Lightstone and a CMA report to kind of see what the sales activity looks like in that particular building. It's very important. And one other thing that I do is every morning in that hour between 8 and 9 o'clock, when I have a coffee and I listen to a Mel Robbins podcast, or I look at a eXp Realty International training session, which the YouTube channel is absolutely amazing, by the way. Really encourage people to do that. I also go into P24 and I go and have a look at what the stock is doing in my market. And it's very interesting, and it really, really gives you the edge. When you are able to go on an appointment and say to this client, listen, last week there were 7 properties in the markets. 5 of them were comparable to yours. They were selling for an average per square meter of 19,995 Rand. Yours, we can't compare because it still has to be renovated. So taking that into consideration, if you were going to go to the market, you're going to have 5 properties that's going to compete with you. So your pricing is going to have to be between X and X. I mean, nobody can argue with that logic. That's why I'm saying, if you know that market and you do the lead gen, getting the appointment is then almost a done deal if you know what you are talking about. So I want to really encourage Stuart, anybody coming into real estate that really is a rookie, they've never done this before. Don't stand back because you think you don't have experience. If you know what you're talking about, and it's not just an estimated guess, but it's rather an educated opinion, you will get that mandate. Don't stand back for it. Just know what you're talking about.
Absolutely. So some key points actually coming here. Make sure that you've got a strategy, make sure that you time block, but more importantly, make sure that you've got some knowledge of what you're actually talking about, helping you to go through this process. Now, I know that there's going to be questions coming from our agents, which is, all right, so you're sending out, and you made mention that you're sending between 60 and 100 WhatsApp messages per day. And
Mm,
you're doing that for, let's call it 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday,
yeah.
Wednesday. So we're
Mm,
looking at 180 to 300 contact details. Now, you mentioned that you're using a tool, the virtual agents, and I know within eXp, we
mm,
give you 60 free credits per day,
mm,
allowing you to get those particular numbers. But when we start pulling in things like the POPIA Act, how are
mm,
you making sure that you're remaining compliant with your lead generation
mm,
strategies so that you don't fall outside of that area? What is your strategy right up front when you're sending out that
mm.
very first WhatsApp message?
Mm. So I want to give this in layman's terms. I come from the legal fraternity, so we kind of normally read it as the Act states it, but I'm going to put it in really plain language for everybody to understand, because I think sometimes, we as agents feel intimidated by the legalese or the legal language that these acts use, and then we kind of don't know what to do or what to say at the end of the day. But in essence, Section 69 of the POPI Act has a couple of requirements that us as agents need to adhere to when it comes to the POPI Act. Number one is that we are only allowed to contact somebody once. And if they then withdraw their permission to contact again, we need to take them off our database, and we are no longer allowed to contact them. So that's the first thing. And that's what my script also, I've got a script that I send to clients when they say to me, I often get a thing, where did you get my number? Who said you may contact me? Poppy says you're not allowed to contact me. But as I said, that's not just the common idea of what people have of Poppy, and they don't actually read what it says. So number one, you're only allowed to contact them once. If they say don't contact me again, take them off your database. Number two, what the Act prescribes us as agents and anybody else to comply with the POPI Act, actually, it says it must be an easy and simple way for them to unsubscribe from a database. Now, and this is why I like a PropCon so much, Stuart, is because it actually has an unsubscribe link that I put at the bottom of all my WhatsApp messages. So what they can do is if they see my message and they no longer want to hear from me, they simply click on the link, they toggle it off to say unsubscribe from all further communication, and they will never receive communication from me again. Number three is if they tell me, listen, I don't want to hear from you again, the Act prescribes us as agents to keep record of the communication sent to them, and where we've said to them, I will take you off my database, no problem, it's 100% with me. So keeping record of the communication, which PropCon also does, is vital to the fact that we need to stay compliant with POPI. And then number four, Stuart, is the fact that it must be free for them to unsubscribe. So it shouldn't cost them any money to unsubscribe from our database. So I think if, in general, if agents just remember those 4 or 5 things that we need to comply with, they'll stick to the right side of the law. And as I said, the tools that eXp gives us actually makes it really easy to stay compliant in terms of the POPI Act.
Absolutely. So key strategy for yourself is using WhatsApp to make those particular communications, and
Correct.
also looking at the areas. You can see certain areas you get high levels of response, certain areas there's lower levels of response. You also mentioned that you're going into a tracking tool. Now, I know you're using a tool that currently is exclusive to the US. Obviously, if you're part of a certain program, they give you access into that particular
Correct.
tool. Now, I know a lot of agents wouldn't have that particular SISU tool available to them at the moment. How would they be able to track the actual messages that are getting sent out to certain areas if they didn't have a tool like that? Would you have any additional solutions?
Yes, sure. So I obviously love playing with the software and seeing what kind of suits for me. And Stuart, I really encourage everybody that you need to find what's working for you. It just so happens that I enrolled for the FastCap program on eXp University. And with enrolling in that program, they gave us obviously access to SISU. So if you want SISU, just the program is amazing. So go and do it. It's worth the time that you put in. But over and above that, Stuart, you can keep it as simple as a Google Sheet or an Excel sheet, as long as you have a method that you will stick to, because that's where the key comes in. If it's something, and James Clear speaks about it in Atomic Habits as well. He says the moment that it is difficult for us to create a habit, we need to go and look at the obstacles that is, prohibiting us from creating that habit, and we need to kind of, get rid of those. It's like, if you want to stop drinking beer, don't put it in the top of the fridge, put it at the bottom, because you're not going to bend down to reach to it at the back, right? So that's the example that he uses. So you need to find something that you are are going to follow up with. So whether or not you're old school, having a diary and jotting everything down and following up with that list once a month, that's up to you. If you decide to use an Excel or a Google spreadsheet, that's up to you. I know PropCon has now that ability as well, very much like Trello, where they've got cards where you can move around. You can make one card your primary contact card and say, these are the people that I've contacted with. And as they progress in the phases of the transaction, you kind of move them onto the next slot. That's a very nice way to start doing it. Trello is an example of that. You could use a Slack channel to do that. So there's many ways to skin a cat, but I think what's important is to find something that you know you will stick with.
Absolutely. As a coach, one of the big things that I work with clients is know your numbers. And the only way that you can know them is to actually track them. Why would you want to track them? Well, it's going to give you conversion ratios. Why do something that's not giving you leads? You want to be doing things that gives you the highest return on your leads. Now,
100%.
you actually dropped in another lead generating technique that most people, they actually didn't know that this was a lead generating technique. And I've been a very, very strong advocate for this for many, many years, even outside of real estate. And it's probably the strongest lead generation technique that anybody can ever use. And it's called follow-up. Now, follow-up is something that agents, I know for me personally, 60% of my business came through from follow-up. You mentioned 70%. It's a high percentage of your business comes in from follow-up. Give us an example. Client has actually said to you, Eide, we're not looking at selling our property now, but maybe in about 2 months' time. What would a follow-up look like for you for that particular client?
So very important, Stuart, to go back to the type of scripts that I use, neuro-linguistic programming. And I would really encourage anybody, there's so many channels on YouTube that teach you about neuro-linguistic programming. And it's really the art of questioning. How do you ask questions to get certain answers from that? First of all, it's going to be important to know when you need to follow up with them, and that's where the tracker comes in. So making sure, just coming from the legal fraternity, I was a debt collector. So it was very important for me to diarize these files to make sure that I follow up with them by the next payment date. And I kind of think that's where the habit came from. So coming into real estate, it was quite easy to do that. But I think obviously knowing when to follow up. And then the second thing is my script would probably go something like, hi, Stuart, it's Eide here. Hope you're doing well. We spoke about a month ago. I know you said you guys are maybe thinking of going into the market. I sent you that CMA report. I don't know if you have an opportunity to have a look at it, but if you are open to the idea of me maybe coming past and answering any questions that you might have, I would be very happy to do so. Let me know when you have some free time. So that's kind of what my script will look like. And I kind of keep it passive. I feel sometimes, it does necessitate a call, if I haven't spoken to them in a while, but often I would just pop them a WhatsApp. I know, especially if they're working during the day, you don't want to, pop somebody a call while they're actually busy or in a meeting or something like that. But when you send a WhatsApp message, it lasts there until they have the opportunity to respond. You're not forcing them for an answer. And that is really key in your follow-up. Is making sure that they don't feel forced. They don't feel like you are telling them what to do. You are opening their mind to, and this is where the NLP comes in. Are you open to the idea of me coming past and answering any questions you might have? Would you be open to, or hypothetically speaking, if you were not to sell your property within the next month or so, could I come past and come show you how I sold Pitty's property in 123 Apple Street down the road a month ago? So giving them the idea, but it's almost like you make them feel like it's their idea. You're not pushing them into a corner, because that's when that resistance comes up and they're like, no, I'll call you when I'm ready. That's often the answer that a pushy agent gets. So don't be pushy. Open the door up and create the hypothetical situation. And believe you me, if you gave them the right information, they will come to you when they are ready. But it's important to do that follow-up, because they also forget.
Absolutely. Follow-up is definitely the key to everyone's business, and it's something that should be part of your time blocking. Eddie, you mentioned that you're doing it on a Thursday. For me, I always used to do it on a Monday. So make sure that you do have that day every single week time blocked to actually do the follow-up. And one thing that I always say to agents that I coach is, well, when you're actually doing a follow-up, you're never going to get this, how did you get my number? because you're following up. It's a very, very easy conversation, and that is going to allow you to start going forward. So, Ed, I want to thank you for your time for coming on. I'm going to open up for some questions. I know that we've got a few that have come into the actual chat box, and I want to thank all of you for actually popping these particular questions that have coming through. I'm going to go through them, and then I want to open up the microphone. So first one from Abby, the app, it's actually called Sisu. So it is something that's available to the US agents, or if you jump into the Fast Cap program, which is currently only available in the US, we are waiting for the re-release, and hopefully in the future it will come out. What's the name of the YouTube channel? That will be coming out soon as far as the eXp, but there are so many YouTube channels. Eide, is there any specific YouTube channel that you actually subscribe to that you could recommend?
So there's three actually that I would highly recommend, Stuart. Firstly, it's the eXp International channel. So they've got different playlists with sellers presentations, buyers presentations, negotiations, etc. So definitely eXp International's ones. I often like to listen to that. I've mentioned Mel Robbins just for some motivational. I think sometimes, you know, it's not the leads or the market that gets in our way, but it's, you know, us that get in our own way. So, you know, if you can overcome your mindset, then really the world's your oyster. A third one is definitely Tom Ferry and his marketing partner, Jason Pantana. So if you haven't watched that, really want to subscribe to. And then last but not the least, and probably one that I would say has had the biggest influence on my real estate career personally is Brandon Mulreenan from reverseselling.com, and he specializes in neuro-linguistic programming. So all his scripts, he has his own coaches, live cold calling on his YouTube channel as well, which is absolutely amazing. I mean, those guys are fresh out of high school. They're 18, 19 years old. So if they can do it by just following his advice, really anybody can do it.
Absolutely. So there we go. 4 different YouTube channels that you can actually jump into and going from there. Andrew mentioned, what script do you use when you first make that particular call? And that's so you can get your foot in the door. Give us a little bit of a high level overview, not giving all of your little trade secrets.
I don't believe in gatekeeping, Stuart. So I'm literally going to give you guys the script that I say. It would go something like this, and this is what that will go out on my PropCon with my first point of contact. It would say, "Hi, Stuart. It's Eddie here from the Cape Real Estate Group. Quick question. Are you still the owner of number 123 Apple Street in Parklands? The reason why I'm asking, if the time was right and if it made sense for you to sell right now, would you consider listing with me for rent or for sale within the next 4 months? If so, I can provide you with a CMA report giving you the latest numbers so you can make an informed decision. Hope to hear from you soon." And that is it.
There we go. That is a simple, very, very simple script. So there we go. That gives you that nice little high-level overview. All right. Bukhari, struggling to log into Sisu? No, you won't be able to log into Sisu. As I mentioned, you have to actually go through the Fast Cap program, and they give you access. This is not an access that's part of the actual cloud fees. Martha, can we also do a follow-up on clients who don't respond to WhatsApp messages? That's actually a great question. You send out 100 WhatsApp messages, but you may get 70 that just don't respond to you. Can you do a follow-up to them?
So 100%. So what I like to do with a follow-up script, and I don't always get time for it, it's just because the response rate is so enormous that you normally get with a WhatsApp. So it's sometimes almost not necessary. And it's very interesting to see, Stuart, that sometimes people read the message, they don't respond. And I just recently, when was it, last week, we were actually at the conference last week, Wednesday, received a message from someone asking me to list their property that I sent a message to in August of 2023. So for 2 years that I haven't had a response from them, and they kept my message and asked me to list their property. So definitely the way to go. A follow-up message could be as simple as a voice note. I like to do a voice note for the second one, because then I kind of personalize it a little bit. And if we look at marketing trends for 2025, personalizing your marketing efforts to your client is definitely going to be key. So I like to send a voice note for my second follow-up. "Hi, Stuart, it's Eddie here. Hope you're doing well. I sent you a message last week. You might have gotten busy in the meanwhile. Just wanted to follow up with you if I could be of any assistance to you. You know, just let me know when you have some free time and we can just hop on a call to have a quick conversation." As simple as that, you know, and they feel like you've literally just spoken to them because they hear your voice, they hear you mentioning their name. So then they would often come back to me and say, oh, Ada, I'm so sorry. It was such a hectic week. It was month end. I'm so sorry for only coming back to you now. Yes, absolutely. When can we chat? And that's normally how the conversation goes.
Absolutely, absolutely. I used to do the exact same thing. I love that first touch as a text message, second touch as the actual personalized voice message, something that is extremely powerful. Right, I've got a couple more questions which we'll bring in after. I want to open up the microphone. So if you do have a question for Ada at any particular stage, please, you'll see at the bottom of your screen, there's a little hardcore high five. Press that little button that puts you into basically a queuing system so that we can get you through it. So if you do have a question, you're more than welcome to do that and we go through. So there was a question, I see it has been answered in the chat box. It was Brandon who, and I can see Brandon Miladian has actually been answered in the chat box. Right, it doesn't seem we've got anybody that's answered any questions. It seems like we've asked all of that. There we go. There's one that's just popped through in the chat box from Johan. Do you use the latest number from VA? For your WhatsApp messages, sometimes quite a few numbers, both husband and wife. So who do you take preference to? Because we do have two numbers and there could be two owners. Do you have a preference? Who do you send them through to?
Actually not, Stuart. It's sometimes I would see the woman in the men's life normally often respond quicker to the messages, but I send messages to both spouses. I do take the most recent one on VA, so I do note from VA's history that they update it every year. So you'll see the numbers that are currently on virtual agents are from January 2025. So I do also go through my database, you know, when I go through a particular sectional and obviously change the ones of the units that I've sold, check that the numbers that I have are still relevant and accurate and so on. But I send to both. And sometimes one would say to me, oh, you just contacted my wife and you guys have already spoken, you know, good to go. But yeah, I send to both of them. I don't have preference. I message both.
Fantastic. What I love about that is it doesn't matter who the person is. A client is a client. Even if they're married, there are still clients, because one thing that you must remember is each one of those clients has a sphere of influence around them. They've got friends, family, clients, past clients, friends, etc. So by getting hold of both husband and wife, basically it just doubles the size of your database.